Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about some very obscure superheroes like Dwarfstar, the Fox, Nightflick, Rebel Yell, Rockman, and Tien Tao as they face off against a new group of villains called the Ultimates, a race of genetically engineered beings whose superpower is that everything they do is an automatic success without ever having to even roll the dice. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love hearing from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, having said all of that, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story begins when World War II ends. The Allied forces capture as many German scientists as possible and brought them to the United States to work under a secret government initiative known as Operation Paperclip. A team of genetic engineers were brought to Wright Patterson Air Force Base, where they examined the bodies recovered from the 1947 Roswell incident. These same scientists went on to dissect numerous defeated supervillains throughout the Silver Age of the 50s and 60s, and then later during the Bronze Age of the 70s and 80s. By the time the 1990s arrived, these aging scientists had been relocated to a minimum security wing. Their overseers, underestimating them, thought that they were harmless in their old age. But beneath their unassuming exterior, the same dark ambitions still burned in secret. Over the years, they dutifully carried out whatever assignments the US government gave them, but in secret, they pursued their own forbidden project, the genetic creation of their version of the Übermensch, the so called ultimate being. These clones were soon dubbed the Ultimates. They were grown in laboratory tubes. The males were engineered for strength and power, the females for beauty and grace, and all of them, by design, possessed blonde hair and blue eyes. Each one also possessed the peak of human potential, as strong as the world's strongest man, as fast as the swiftest Olympic runner, and as intelligent as the greatest genius. But their most terrifying trait was that everything they did was an automatic action. Every punch thrown, every bullet dodged, every equation solved. All of it was automatic, flawless, and inevitable. Nothing they did ever requires a roll of the dice. And then one day, the shaper of worlds tore apart the governments of the world, and the walls of Wright Patterson crumbled to dust. And at last, the ultimates were freed. Which brings us to the main plot of today's story. Dwarfstar, the Fox, Nightflick, Rebel Yell, Rockman, and Tien Tao spring into action as soon as they hear that there's an emergency downtown. When they arrive, they see two muscular blonde men effortlessly dodging police gunfire. We roll initiative, and the Fox goes first. He's basically a knockoff of Zorro. He runs towards the villains on his turn. Next up is Dwarfstar, who looks quite a bit like Puck from Alpha Flight. He runs towards the battle as well. Next is Tien Tao, who launches himself into the scene with a cannonball, using his bouncing powers to propel forwards. He aims at one of the villains, rolling 3d6 to attack. He gets a 2, a 2, and a 4, which normally would hit, but the attack is effortlessly sidestepped without the villain even having to roll dice. Tien Tao looks like Jackie Chan, and under his breath, He curses in Chinese. Next up is Nightflick, who is a vampire from Chicago. He is currently shaped like a giant bat, not unlike Man Bat. He flies at the bad guys, rolling a 6, a 6, and a 2, which normally would hit. But again, the villain doesn't have to roll to dodge. They just say they dodge. Next up is Rockman, whose gray body of stone is similar to that of Ben Grimm, and whose personality is reminiscent of the X-Men's own Hank McCoy. Rockman rolls a 3, a 3, and a 1, which would hit if not for that auto dodge ability that these villains have. The final hero to go is Rebel Yell, who's a bit like Banshee, reimagined through a Dukes of Hazzard filter. Rebel Yell screams "Yeehaw!" loud enough to shatter glass, and his sonic blast power has several enhancements on it. One is that it's an area of effect, which means when these guys try to dodge, they are still in that area of effect. So they actually take damage. And Rebel Yell gets to roll 12d6 when rolling damage. So he does, doing a grand total of 48 points of damage to both villains. The bad guys are knocked out, and as Nightflick reverts to his human form, the police step in to handcuff the Ultimates. With the combat over, initiative is no longer in effect, and the heroes are free to act. Nightflick, who's basically our Batman analog, begins examining the unconscious men. First glance, they appear to be twin brothers, but their hands tell a different story, soft and uncalloused, showing no sign of ever having done real work. Their faces are just as telling. No smile lines, no laugh lines, no marks of a lived life. When the police run the villains through facial recognition software, the system identifies both men as a hero named Mr. Perfect. Nightflick is quick to deduce that Mr. Perfect must have been cloned. Meanwhile, the villains regain consciousness. Normally, making an escape artist attempt would require a dice roll, but these men just do it. Almost as easily, they grab the police officers' weapons and open fire on the heroes. Dwarfstar needs a 6 or lower to dodge. He rolls an 8. Fox needs an 11 or lower to dodge. He rolls a 10. Nightflick is actually immune to any attack that is metal, which includes bullets, so he doesn't even bother dodging. Rebel Yell needs a 6 or lower to dodge, and he rolls an 11. Rockman needs a 4 or lower to dodge, and he rolls a 16. Tien Tao needs to roll, a 7 or lower to dodge. He rolls exactly a 7, gives him exactly what he needed to succeed. But nonetheless, Dwarfstar takes 9 points of damage from that attack. His DR shields him from 6 of those points, so only 3 of that gets through, dropping his hit points from 13 to 10. Rebel Yell has 20 points of damage resistance, so he is unharmed, but his costume is in rough shape. And Rockman has 36 points of DR, so he's absolutely fine. The villains take in the scene, instantly assessing their opponent's strengths and weaknesses, which is another automatic action performed flawlessly and without hesitation. The heroes strike back, but the villains dodge every attack with ease, except for Rebel Yell, whose sonic screen manages to knock them out once again. And then, as before, the villains awaken, slip free, and seize police weapons, this time opting for knockout gas. And the villain's plan succeeds because, shockingly, not a single hero on this team is immune, not even Nightflick. One by one, the heroes are knocked out. And one of the villains briefly considers slitting their throats while they sleep. But most of the heroes' damage resistance makes that futile. In the end, the villains opt to just focus on escaping instead. Which brings us to the epilogue. Eventually, the superheroes regain consciousness only to discover that the villains have long since vanished. Nightflick begins searching for clues. As a vampire crime fighter, this is second nature to him because by day, he is a private investigator in Chicago, so it makes him exceptionally skilled at tracking down leads. And the trail of breadcrumbs leads the heroes to the ruins of Wright Patterson Air Force Base. Thanks to the Shaper of Worlds, anything that had once been government property had been reduced to dust, not unlike the Thanos snap. Amidst the ruins, the heroes discovered the cloning equipment used to create the Ultimates, and remarkably, it remains intact because it was a side project of the German scientists and not actual government property. And by the way, those scientists are now found dead among the rubble. It appears that they finally succeeded in creating their ultimate beings, but in doing so, they sealed their own fate. The Ultimates turned on the very men that had created them because, in the eyes of the creations, mere humans were quote unquote inferior. The scientists fell victim to the age old adage be careful what you wish for. Anyways, that was it for this game. We haven't heard the end of these bad guys, of course, but as is so often the case, that's a story for another day. We liked playing this one. We hope you liked hearing about it. If so, as always, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.